Air attacks are dominating Clash of Clans right now, but not for the reason most players think. I just had a perfect day in Legend 1 using an air strategy, and what made the difference wasn't execution. It was how I adapted to each base. Right now, players are over-defending certain entries, and that's creating new openings, especially in how your queen and your air troops work together. So in this video, I'm going to break down a few different bases, show you how I approached each one, and more importantly, explain why this is working so well in the current meta. I'm going to show you the strategy that led me to a perfect day in Legend 1, and we're going to break down 3 different types of bases and how I approach each one of them. This strategy is Dragon Riders with Inferno Dragons, using also Rocket Backpack plus Giant Arrow combo. Right now I'm using 5 Inferno Dragons since we have more camp space, and besides that, the composition stayed almost the same. I'm also using the new siege machine, the Sky Wagon. It's very strong. I think it's the strongest siege machine at the moment, mainly because it deploys a lot of troops, and those troops help the Inferno Dragons take out heroes. It also tanks air traps. That's why this combination is working really well. In my previous composition, I was using the Siege Barracks, but now this is the adaptation I've been using. So let's check the first base. This is a pretty standard base that players used a lot, but it's kind of an older style now. It's not very strong against air attacks anymore, mainly because of the ground expos. Ground expos can defend the queen really well and take her out fast, but they don't really defend the Dragon Rider part. So this is a base that is strong against throwers and root riders, but not very strong against air attacks. As you can see, this base doesn't defend very well against Rocket Backpack because there is a clean line where I can hit both spell towers, the Revenge Tower, and also the Monolith. I can use earthquakes to take all of them out. When I see this kind of value, I just go for it and try to get as much as I can. Before I deploy Duke, the most important thing is to check the queen position. This is key because with the Sky Wagon, the queen isn't protected. You can't use the siege barracks to protect her, so she becomes much more exposed. That's why I always check where the queen is going to use the giant arrow. If I go from the bottom to the top with the Dragon Duke, I would need to place the queen in that area. But in that position, we have 2 ricochet cannons, the clan castle with possible headhunters, and also the long shot. On top of that, even if I take out the Rage Tower, the Rage would still be active when the queen gets there, which makes it very risky. So instead of forcing that, it's much better to use the queen from the other side. There's much less damage there, so the queen is way more protected. That's why I use the Duke from the top and the queen from the bottom. There is still a ground expo, but it's manageable. At the same time, I also remove the Monolith, which makes it much easier for the queen to clear that entire section. Now for the execution. As I said in another video, I start with the earthquakes first, then the Duke, because builders will start repairing buildings, so it's easier to get value if you open with earthquakes. Also, you don't need to use the giant arrow to take the spell towers. The Duke with Rocket Backpack at level 24 already takes them down with 2 earthquakes. So it's earthquakes, then Duke, and then queen. You can see there is a very clear synchronization between them. The Duke goes from top to bottom and naturally meets the queen, helping her clear that section. That's why I use Duke first and queen after. If I open with the queen first and then bring the Duke later, the queen can die too fast. This way, the Duke supports her and stabilizes the entry. After that, it's about protecting the queen and then starting the Dragon Riders. In this case, I go from the right side because the Duke is already clearing the left side and creating the path. I also wait a little bit before deploying everything to improve pathing. I wanted to remove that Super Wizard Tower so my Dragon Riders wouldn't drift to the left. That's important because there is a sweeper pushing them in that direction. And that's exactly what happened here. Some Dragon Riders went left and ended up dying. Then I deploy the Sky Wagon behind my troops. And here's something very important. If you don't take out the clan castle, you need to be very careful because headhunters are stronger now. In this situation, I used the Eternal Tome to protect my troops when the headhunters came out, and I also used poison to deal with the furnace. Most of the time, you take out the clan castle with your initial entry, but here the tome handles it very well. From there, it's just about controlling the spells. I used Overgrowth to tank the air defense, and also reduce pressure from the Fire Spitter, since I can't tank this damage with Totem. Then I revived the Duke after protecting that section with the Minion Prince ability, and from there it's just about managing freeze and the last totem. So as you can see, This is a base where the rocket backpack plus giant arrow gave me a lot of value. So I just go for it. My main focus here was to get as much value as possible from that entry, and after that, it's just about controlling the attack. So this is the first triple, a triple against a base with ground expos, which is not very common anymore, but you can still find it sometimes. Now let's check another base. This base has 4 air expos, which is much more common now because air attacks are very strong. This creates a situation where you can get a lot more synergy between the queen and the dragon rider part. Why? Because when the queen is tanking air expos, those defenses are not targeting the dragon riders. And at the same time, dragon riders can also tank some defenses for the queen. So both parts of the attack end up supporting each other. Because of that, in these situations, instead of separating both parts, you want them to work together as much as possible. So I focus on placing the queen in a safe position and then bringing the dragon riders close to her. This creates a much stronger entry overall. That's what I did in this base. It's a different approach compared to the first one. As you can see, there is some value for the Duke, but not as much as in the previous base. Here, my rocket backpack is maxed, but even at level 24, with 2 earthquakes, you can already take down a spell tower, which is very important. That's why level 24 was such a key level. As you can see, there is still a line where I could take both spell towers with the Duke, but in this case, the queen's position becomes more important than the immediate value. The queen's value can come later in the attack, not necessarily from the giant arrow at the beginning. So where is the best position for the queen? In this base, it's on the sides. If I place the queen in the same path as the Duke, she will take too much damage. We have 2 ricochet cannons there, and on the other side, the Revenge Tower, the Super Wizard Tower, and the Lava Launcher. That's too much pressure. So instead, I place the queen on the bottom side, but not too close to the ricochet cannons. I keep her more on the side where she is safer. Now let's check the execution. I start with 2 earthquakes and the Duke clearing that section. Then I place the queen at the bottom. As you can see from this position, she is much more protected. I don't get a lot of value from the giant arrow early on, but I clear the clan castle, and the value will come later because the queen will funnel this side and take down several defenses over time. Now the best position for the dragon riders to enter is from the right side. This way they protect the queen and also force her to move to the left, creating more value. On the other side, there is a multi-gear tower, but the monolith is a much better target for my dragon rider entry. That's why I use the queen on the bottom and the dragon riders on the right side, so I can enter through the monolith. In this situation, I wait a little before committing everything. Why? Because there isn't a lot of damage on the queen, so I can allow her to take more defenses and shape the path. Right now, players are defending a lot against rocket backpack plus giant arrow, but they are not defending as well against the queen funnel and dragon rider entry. So I take advantage of that by letting the queen do more work before sending the rest of the army. After that, the attack becomes much more straightforward. I manage the damage with spells and the queen moves to the left, taking out the Inferno Tower and helping finish the scatter shot. Then my troops move to the top. I use the ability, and since the long shot stays in the center, I use spells to tank that position. Because the long shot is isolated, I can deal with it easily. From there, it's just about waiting for the Duke revive. I also had 1 overgrowth spell, which I used to deal with some defenses and stabilize the push. From that point on, I finished the base. So as you can see, the queen's positioning and how she connects with the dragon rider part was very important in this attack. Because of the air expos, you can create much stronger synergy between both parts. And that's what makes this strategy much more consistent right now. Now let's check another base. This is a common type of base that's being used right now, but this one is slightly modified. As you can see, there are no spell towers in positions where I can get good value with the rocket backpack. I also don't get much value from other angles either. And just like the previous base, we have 4 air expos. So in this case, I'm going with a similar approach. My main idea is to use the queen in a position where she is protected, so she can help the dragon rider part by funneling, dealing damage, and tanking some defenses. Even though I don't get a lot of value from the giant arrow, the queen will compensate for that later in the attack. In this situation, I'm going to focus on the clan castle, since it's the strongest value I can get early on in this base. I can't get spell towers, so I prioritize the clan castle instead. I don't get a lot of value from the rocket backpack plus giant arrow combination, But with good Dragon Rider positioning and Queen positioning, I can compensate for that in the overall attack. So where is the best position for the Queen? It can be from the bottom side, since there isn't a lot of damage there, or from the left side. My main idea is to take out the clan castle and then start with the Dragon Riders very early to support the Queen. So the Duke needs to come from the top to the bottom, helping to tank for the Queen in that position. Now for the execution, I start with the Earthquakes, then the Duke, and then the Queen at the bottom, finishing that section. After that, it's very important to start with the Dragon Riders very quickly. This way, the Queen uses the Giant Arrow and also helps funnel for the Dragon Riders, just like in the previous attack. The Dragon Riders come through the middle, and the Queen stays on the side. As you can see, the Giant is tanking one Air Expo, which is very important because it relieves pressure from the Dragon Riders. So I get value from the Queen in a different way, not necessarily from the Giant Arrow at the start. At this point, I use the Eternal Tome to protect this section. Then I use an Overgrowth spell. To be honest, this Overgrowth wasn't very good because it should have covered the left side. Why the left side? Because my idea was to force the troops in this position to move to the right, so they could go and neutralize that section. Usually I don't use Overgrowth in front of my troops. As I said in my Overgrowth tutorial video, in most situations, you should read the troop trajectory first and place it on the side. But here I used it in front for two reasons. Even if I used it on the side, the logger doesn't get affected by Overgrowth, so it would still deal side damage. Second, there was a Rage Tower in front, so I wanted to temporarily reduce the damage from that area while dealing with this section. But the positioning wasn't ideal. It should have covered those three defenses. My plan was to finish the air defense with super balloons, but it took longer than expected. My troops kept moving, but as you can see, they ended up splitting. So like I always say, Overgrowth is a very strong spell, but if you miss it or place it incorrectly, it can mess up your attack. Because of that split, I almost lost control. I still had one freeze left, so for the back end, I used it on the monolith and managed to take it down. This wasn't a very clean attack because of the Overgrowth mistake, but as you can see, the positioning was still very strong. So the main takeaway here is this: if you don't get a lot of value from the Rocket Backpack and Giant Arrow, you need to adapt. Each base is different, and you need to adjust accordingly. Players are going to defend against this strategy, and when they do, they usually open opportunities for different approaches. In this case, the Air Expos create that opportunity, and that's where you can take advantage of it by creating strong synergy between the Queen and the Dragon Riders. That's why this is working so well in High Legends. If you got value from this, you can support me by using my creator code Marinol in the store. It really helps me keep making this kind of content. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe.